Well, let's see. Who am I? George Neil Ferguson III was born April 24th, 1954, in Greenwood, Mississippi, to George Neil Ferguson Jr. and Gwen Sharp Ferguson. You've heard about Army brats. Well, I was a Red Cross brat. My dad moved the family around all over the South as I was growing up, and we eventually wound up in Philadelphia, where I did most of my growing up. I worked my way through college, went to Georgia State University where I got a BBA, got my MBA at Rockhurst University, and I've done my doctoral work at the University of Missouri at Kansas City. Now, professionally, I have worked for a bank in Atlanta in operations, trust operations, and in factoring as I was working my way through undergraduate school. Moved to Kansas City in 1979, went to work for Hallmark, and then Marion Labs in 1988, and I started my business in 2000. I've also taught at Rockhurst University since 1986, 20 years as an adjunct, and then the past few years full-time. I've had several significant events in my life. At Hallmark, I was really focused on kind of the outward things of success. How big was my office? How big was my budget? How many people reported to me? How many stripes did I have on my sleeve? I took a lateral into kind of systems training where I was teaching people how to use the systems, and I was going around to the plants, consulting with them on how to handle their inventories, and I absolutely loved it. I eventually left that to move up in the organization. I became the production control manager for the art staff. I was the sales forecasting manager for the company, and I wasn't happy. And it finally hit me why I wasn't happy. There was this one forecast that I was just sweating blood over. I was working on it for several weeks. Took it to the executive committee, put it in front of them, and this vice president sits back and says, "Not quite the number I was thinking of. Take it back, look at it, you'll see what it is that I mean." In other words, I figured out what I was doing didn't make a difference. So I decided, okay, I want to make a difference. All right, so how can I make a difference? Based on my skills and interests, it was in training and education. So I decided at that point to focus my career on training and education. I left Hallmark and hooked up with Marion Labs. I spent 12 years at Marion, where I was responsible for North America Leadership Development, and then opened my business in 2000. Another significant event in my life. My dad was the CEO of the American Red Cross in Atlanta when he finally retired. Now, I knew he was known throughout the U.S. National had tried to suck him up and take him to Washington several times. He kept saying, no, 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 I'm going to stay at the chapter level. Well, he passed away in 2000, and we were absolutely shocked at his funeral. Apparently it got out on the Red Cross grapevine that, hey, did you hear that George had passed away? Over 200 people from all over the U.S. showed up at his funeral. We were amazed. We had no idea. And afterwards, people kept coming up to me saying, "George, you have no idea the impact that your father had on my life," and started to tell me the story. I was absolutely blown away. I mean, this man had left an unbelievable legacy. I could only dream of leaving a legacy such as that. Consequently, it really did reinforce my personal mission of making a positive difference in people's lives. Another significant event that happened in my life concerned my son. My oldest son, Jeff, when he got out of high school, joined the Navy. He was in the Navy for 4 years, and when he got out of the Navy, joined the Army. He wound up spending 2004 in Iraq. That was a very hard time, very difficult time for my wife and me. I mean, here he was being shot at and, taking fire and returning fire. He was on the front lines. And when he came back from Iraq after that year there, it was just an unbelievable feeling for all of us. What a feeling of relief, and so happy that he was back in one piece. Afterwards, there was an issue that had cropped up that really did concern him, and I asked him about it, and he said, "Dad, at least they're not shooting at me." That little sentence right there really did impact me, in that it really does help me put things into perspective. Whenever I'm having a difficult time, I just step back and think, at least they're not shooting at me. So what are my interests? Love to ride my bike. I put in several thousand miles a year riding my bike. I play golf very, very badly. And my latest significant interest are my grandchildren. For my wife and me, there is absolutely nothing more important than family and in appreciating what it is that we actually have as far as the grandchildren and the children. We have 3 kids, and we have 5 grandkids, ranging from 11 to 9 months. So that's George, a guy with varied experiences, events, and life roles, and who only wants to make a positive difference in this world.